Is that the reserve? Is that called the reserve? Okay, thanks.
That's this area here. So the remaining development rights on the area that we're looking at is 864 multifamily units. So that's what the plan is approved for today. So the periodic review for a planned unit development requires the Planning Commission to determine if a PUD or a portion of a PUD, which is what we're looking at today, or with council now, is active. If found to be active, then no further action is required by the Planning Commission. If it's found to be inactive, then the Planning Commission must make a recommendation to council to reapprove the plan, amend the plan, cancel the plan, and or rezone the property. So I know many of you probably at the meeting in July. So the council member requested the review in June. There was a public hearing with the Planning Commission in July. The Commission found the PUD inactive and recommended that council rezone the property to specific plan. They further asked that the SP reduce the overall footprint, utilize environmentally sensitive development practices, protect view sheds, and dedicate open space. So this is the proposed SP boundary, which is in gray. So the only areas that were left out is the existing development. So everything around it is the... Hello? Okay, now can you hear?
Hey, yes.
Okay, so everything outside the SP is the area that's already developed. So everything around it is current open space. So the proposed SP limits the development to 360 units. It limits the disturbance area to 14 acres. So that's 14 acres of the total 270-something acres. It limits building heights and provides standards for rock walls or retaining walls, which may be necessary through the development. It also provides standards for open space, which includes if the property is transferred over to Metro Parks or to a land trust. So staff finds that the proposed SP is consistent with what the Planning Commission asked for us to do. And so that SP has been presented to council and is up for approval. So it is currently on Thursday's meeting for Planning Commission meeting. However, we are recommending that it be deferred to the January 14th Planning Commission meeting. So there will not be a presentation on Thursday. The plan was introduced at council. It's currently tracking for the January 5th council public hearing. However, the council lady is planning on deferring that to the February 2015 or February 2nd council public hearing. So both of those are public hearings, and those are meetings that everyone can attend and voice their opinions if needs to. Also, the council legislation, there's two bills. So you have the plan unit development that's proposed to be council, which is Bill 2015-87, and then the SP is Bill 2015-86. So if you want to go to the council website, you can actually go to those bills and look at the details of each one, including the specific plan that's on file with the council. So the website at the top is the actual link to the council bill that contains the SP, and then my information is at the bottom, so if you want to call or if you have any questions, you can also email me. So that concludes my presentation.
So before I go to Q&A, how many of you in here attended July 23rd meeting? Okay, great. A great portion of them. So for people who are not familiar with the July 23rd meeting, let me explain briefly. On July 23rd, Planning Commissioner declared this part to be enacted. And then as a council person, I do have one responsibility: to follow planning staff's recommendation. if I don't do anything within 6 months of that inactive decision, that entire 261 acres will go back to old PUD. It means if I don't do anything, builder or property owner can build additional 864 units, and which I'm assuming nobody want to do that in this room. I'm just
No.
guessing wild guess. So my job is to introduce the bill to cancel old PUD and also give a guideline. So SP, Jason explained to you, will give a guideline. This bill will minimize the developable area to 14 acres. So rest of 250 something acres will be protected. And we are talking to how we can permanently protect them and so forth. We are talking to Tennessee Greenways and Foundation and other organizations who might help us to achieve permanent preservation. So that's where we are. And so now, I will ask anybody who has any question. Yes, sir?
Jason, do you have a topographic overlay for this, or is it in the bills?
There is one in the bill that shows the steep slopes in red, so it kind of has,
Point where the current water tower is?
it is this parcel that's got the little square right there.
And now can you pinpoint the Westmead waterfall?
Do you believe?
I think it's in the white area or
If
somewhere.
I'm correct, it's
right
off,
there.
yeah, it's a property that Metro bought, and it's, I think, at the end of this cul-de-sac.
Yes. So I would just want to be sure that the drainage down to that side is protected.
I don't, like I said, I don't have a contour map, but there is a valley, or I'd call it more of a gorge, that runs, let me get back to, this may make it easier. So, right in here, there's a valley. It's pretty steep.
It's
and
very
that's kind of where the boundary for the proposed SP was cut off as far as the 14 acres. So, they'd have to meet stormwater regulations, but until a development plan comes in where their stormwater is going to go, I can't really speak to that. Yes, sir.
How many access points and where would they be located?
Access would be through the existing drives.
Beg your pardon?
Access would be through the existing drives out to Old Hickory. So everything would go funnel back out through the existing development.
Off of Old Hickory?
Yes, sir.
Maybe I don't understand, but when you had the hearing in July, it was determined inactive. So how did the 14 acres come to be? Why are we discussing the 14 acres? Who brought that to the table? Why are we doing that instead of nothing?
So we have to do something.
Pardon me?
The law requires us to do something. So the planning commission said that it was inactive. So we have to make a recommendation to council on what to do, because right now they have development rights for over 800 units. So what do we do with that since it's inactive? So the commission asked us to draft an SP to present to council that limits the development footprint, also provides some better standards as far as development, new practices for development in these type of areas, and protect view sheds, as well as look at what to do with the leftover space as far as the open space. So that's what we were charged with to do, and that's what this SP is. So it would become the zoning for that property, so it would limit them to the 14 acres, nothing more. So that is a legislative act.
For now, that's just, in my opinion, that's just a step forward to the development of what they really want. If you allow the first 14 acres to be developed.
Yes, ma'am.
You have no guarantee that they're not going to come back
don't introduce new build, they could develop entire 271 acres. That's what they call property rights. So this bill I'm introducing will limit developable area to 14 acres if and when property owner decide to develop something on that land. So first of all, we have to cancel the part, as I explained earlier, because otherwise the current property owner could develop additional 864 units. So we, first of all, want to prevent that. But second of all, there is a property right. So we cannot deny property owners' right. So what planning department come up with is considering this slopes prone to area, viewshed, sensitivity, and still give some property rights to the property owner, what would be the right plan. So that's where 14 acres came from. And that will protect, pretty much the West Mid waterfall and surrounding neighbors. And if and when property owner decided to construct something, they will have to follow new regulation, storm waters, and fire department, and so forth. We are not there yet. We are just primarily saying only area appropriate if and when property owner decided to develop will be a designated 14 acres area. And if and when they decided have to follow all the regulation. Yes, ma'am.
Where is the 14 acres? Is it right behind the reserve?
Yes, ma'am. This map doesn't show.
Yes, it's right behind the reserve.
Here, I could put up.
It's almost
You
backing
want the
up.
topo, like a ortho photo?
Doesn't it back up to Brook Hollow?
Yeah, I have posted on my Facebook page, but it's basically 270 acres, and he will bring up some map. It's right next to, like adjacent to existing development, and really kind of teeny bitty, neatly tucked in, right next to the existing development, and you can see that on the.
Give me I'll pull it up in a
That's
second.
okay. It's like Brook Hollow, I think.
So when you say multifamily units, what are you talking about? Individual homes or condos or apartments?
Anything in between individual home to multi-unit home. It can be a single home, it can be apartment, it can be a condominium. Yes, ma'am?
Will the community have any input or say as to whether it is a condominium complex or another apartment complex?
I think that's a legal question, so I need to ask Metro lawyer, but as far as my understanding is, as long as it within the definition of multi-housing, we really cannot specify either condominium or apartment. That is my understanding. Yes, sir?
It's a little bit of a long question, but we have currently, Metro Planning and Zoning has indicated that the two roads that currently leave the property are required because of the density. We've got 198 units there. This new property, which will have 180% increase over the existing use, will really only have use of one exit, because the other one will take them through property that they don't own.
Right, that's protected.
So it seems really difficult to put that much property with only one way to get in and out of the property. And on top of that, suggesting that it's going to be rental property. I think this might be a challenge.
Yes, I understand. I think when a developer or a property owner bring up actual development plan, that's the one we really have to go through traffic study, and the Metro Fire Marshal have to study and say if it's appropriate or not.
Do
and
you have a
also
feeling
Metro-
whether it would be passed by the fire marshal?
Not knowing exact plan, I have no comment. There's nothing for me to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other question?
So
Yes,
this
sir?
is where we
One
are.
of the things that was mentioned before, last time, was that part of the new plan, they would take off land, dirt, rock, and dump it into one of the valleys. They did that on the original that's already there. Is that in the new plan, or is that prevented?
Is this the development area? Want to take over the question?
I can address the question about cut and fill. It's a little different here because typically cut and fill deals with stormwater regulations, and if you have floodplain and you fill into the floodplain, then you have to compensate for that by cutting somewhere else. In this case, that will not, they do not have any stormwater buffers. They may have one. A buffer could encroach right into this area because this is where the stream comes through this valley. So that may be a possibility, but they would have to stay outside that buffer. So if they have any type of buffer requirement along that stream, they would have to stay out of it. Yes, ma'am.
Again, I know they have property rights, so working within what, offering them something within their original plan, or could it be that, is that the least footprint, where it's like there's frontage on Highway 70, you can say, well, the least footprint of this, we can use that, I don't know.
I guess it didn't really come out as a question, but I mean, we looked at this area and, the fact that there's already a road that comes into this area, if you look at what they're able to develop today, and you look at the topo going towards the road, this is probably the best area. This minimizes what they can do. Another thing to keep in mind is that there's a property that's along Old Hickory Boulevard that's not part of this development. It's actually approved for commercial. So that's another old plan unit development that's been around for a long time. Let's go back to,
That right there. That thing. You want to go to your?
Tubert Hollow, is that it?
That right there.
it's this area here.
That Tobert
So
Hollow?
that's a completely different property. It's within a different plan unit development. So under this, that wasn't reviewed. That's not part of this SP, so that's not something that's on the table. Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Who studies like the traffic and what's going on? Because we live in Summit Oaks across the street, and we're really concerned about traffic because we hear that all these are going up across the street. And behind Summit Oaks, between us and Hicks Road, it's been developed for 300 more homes that will be going up back there. So I'm thinking about 650 to 700 more homes and all these people, where they can go, and all this traffic coming through our subdivision, going to Old Hickory Boulevard,
Okay. The Metro traffic engineer would review those through the Department of Public Works. So right now, this is just a regulatory document. So until they come in with the final site plan actually showing what they're going to build, we can't look at those numbers, but they will have to submit a traffic impact study to the Public Works Department that will be reviewed by the traffic engineer. And at that time, they would come up with their recommendations on the number of units that the roads could support, if they need to do any off-site traffic improvements, which could include a traffic light, if they need to do turn lanes, widening, those type things along Old Hickory or in other areas. So, but until there's actually a development to look at, we don't know. I mean, the SP limits them to 360 units. However, once they get in and start looking at actually looking at the site, they may not even come up with that because they still have to build within the guidelines of the SP. So, we don't even know now if they can actually do 360 units given all the conditions of the SP. Yes, ma'am.
The previous slide that you had shown up there, and I may have misinterpreted it, but it looked like that the building, the development envelope was around the road that goes up to the water tower.
Yes,
So
exactly.
is it on each side of the water tower, if I'm mistaken? It was the previous slide that you showed.
That one, or do you want
Yes.
that?
That one.
Yep, that's it.
The other one?
Yep, that's it.
Pit is on the water tower,
Yes.
the very top. That's the road that goes up, so it looks like the water tower in the valley below.
Correct. So everything within inside that box is the area for development. Everything outside that box is that's the boundary, the limit of disturbance.
Well, they get rid of the water, they leave the water tower, and what are they gonna do?
No, I think they need the water tower there because of the elevation to serve water to everyone around there. So, I mean, that's just within the boundary, but there's no plan to
That's just
develop that. That's also that's actually property belongs to Harpeth Valley.
Before I take our next question, let me recognize our Council Lady Angie Henderson,
See that road, the one in the bottom?
the district across from Highway 70, and also former Mayor Bill Purcell. And he is representing Rodna to River at that organization. Do you have any other question? Yes, sir.
So you had mentioned a 360 number down from an 800 number. How did the 360, how was that arrived at if it's still, again, subject to continual further review by fire and traffic? I mean, what was the magic in coming up with that number versus, say, 100? Because similarly, the traffic growth on both sides of Old Hickory and feeding in, and then getting out to 40, it's going to be considerably concerning here.
I mean, it's really trying to balance the interest for everyone, the property owner, the community. So I mean, we've been working on this since the Planning Commission meeting, since they directed us to do this. So we have been meeting with everyone that has involvement or in this project. So it's just been kind of working through the details. And once we came up with these boundaries in the plan, the property owner had indicated that they were okay, that they could be okay with this boundary, that they think they could develop within the boundary, within all the requirements of the SP, and then we started looking at density that they could possibly do. So, I mean, it's kind of like I said, just trying to balance what everyone wants out of it. You can't please everyone, but the attempt is that everyone walks away feeling like we preserve the property and the owner feels that he is able to develop his property and not losing everything.
So if I could, a quick follow-up, I was going to say, I'm in the Summit Oaks across the street there on the ridge line with the continued 200-300 more beyond us. At least my offering to that as you're continuing this review is from a safety perspective of the traffic alone, it's going to be a significant volume coming into that. And so I would certainly welcome any continued reconsideration of shrinking that number to the extent possible.
So, one thing I want to make crystal clear is, right now, we do not have any specific development proposal yet. So 360 number is because we don't want to take away property owners' property rights, and property owner requested planning staff to, could we potentially increase to 360? And the reason I said that would be fair is because if property owner could come up with great plan to develop within that envelope, following every single regulation and every single development guideline, if they can accomplish, it might be possible. But by following, 360 number could go to 300, could be 270, could be 250, I don't know. But the regulation, as far as regulation-wise, if they can achieve that goal and then still make 300 units, I cannot change the number 270 to 300. I can easily change the number 360 to 300. So that's the only technicality. That's the number increased from 270 to 360. It does not mean it's going to be 360 unit of apartment, condominium, whatever it might be, will be built on that location. I just wanted to, clarify that point. Any other question? Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't at the July meeting, but I have a couple of questions that concern me. One of them, I agree with the folks in the back, that if it is put right there and they do feed out our, I call it our auxiliary road out to Old Country Boulevard, right now, there are already cars that are backed up going up the hill to feed onto the interstate in the morning just to go to work. And, it's absolutely unbelievable to see the amount of cars that are just trying to get on the interstate. That's not one concern. The other thing is, the acreage have to be exactly right there, or could it be moved to a different part of that particular parcel and empty out on Highway 70, instead of emptying out on, Old Country Boulevard?
With the planning on that.
Still something in the plan.
I'm just trying to protect the reserve. That's where I'm coming from.
The topography along Highway 70 in between this spot and Highway 70 is very extreme as far as steepness. So, that's the reason these are the areas that, really this is the area that we're trying to protect. So, putting a road through there would really degrade the property and go against what we're actually trying to do.
Why don't we go all the way up to there? No.
Different property close.
Okay,
And
you
the
guys are not
slopes
even
right at
there
Highway
yet.
70 are
Does that property go
very
to
extreme.
Highlands?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. But does it have to be that particular 14 acres?
Yeah, but we're not even there yet. We're just like
Yeah.
preliminary looking
They're
at
also
this.
developing across from that down road that goes up into the reserve. They're also, there's signs up there that says they're developing something down across the street, down in the valley across, next to those other, condos in there.
Those are already built.
Is there any of that development?
They're already built.
No, it's down that road that goes to the right.
There is development approved above
Just
some
put
of
up
those, if that's the area you're talking about.
No.
Okay, the
Below
Woodbury,
Below Woodbury.
It's next to Woodbury.
You see here,
I'm not aware of any new plans that have been approved in that area.
There's a big sign up there that says that there's homes or something coming soon, so that's gonna add to this traffic there.
I would like to save that whole cliffside. It's gorgeous.
You mentioned that the open space would either become open space or parkland. How will that be determined?
We don't know.
So basically, that will be between the property owner and whatever entity is interested in the property. So they'll have to work out those details. The SP has mechanisms in place that would dictate how it could develop as far as like very light use, trails and those type things, so it'd be accessible by the public, but it does not permit any large-scale development. The only things I could think of would be maybe some small parking areas for trailheads, maybe a nature center or something if Parks takes it. But it will be up between the property owner and whatever group takes it.
Is that something that the council could require, that it be one or the other?
Well, the SP requires it to be open space, so the only way to come back and redevelop, if someone wanted to redevelop that area, they would have to go back through this whole process. So it's not they can just go out and do it. They have to go get it rezoned to something, show a plan, go through council.
I understand that. What I'm getting at is whether the SP could require that it be either, they require that it be parkland, for example.
I think that is restriction that's probably a little hard to enforce. I mean, requiring a property owner to give property to someone that may not want it. So that's too uncertain.
Well, that, if it has to be open space, it can be parkland or open space limited to the people that live in this particular apartment complex. It's going to be open space either way, so I wonder why it couldn't be required that it be parkland and therefore available to the public at large.
Well, for it to be a park, Metro would have to accept it as a park. So, I mean, I can't speak for parks if they want it. So, I mean, that's the thing, is that there's no way for us to require that without having any certainty of what would happen, what that means for the property owner.
I'm Melissa Reinhardt. I'm on the HOA board at the Reserve, and we met with the attorneys of the property owners. And so I just want to tell you what my takeaway was. I don't have my back to somebody, but, you know,
Speak up.
okay, because I got a big mouth. You know, something that we just have to consider is we can't walk into your house and say, I don't like that wall where it's at. I'm going to tear it down and move it over here. So these are 3 daughters of the landowner that passed away. They've inherited this. They have this opportunity for all this, and they are willing to give us greenway. The cave and the waterfall is not an issue. They're not on the property. They're willing to downsize from 800 plus to 300. I mean, and at that point, the back road would be paved because it's part of the new development. They're giving us so much, and they're losing a lot. So we just need to think about it as if it were ours. If we were the homeowner, I mean, if we were the landowner, would you want this big crowd in here saying, can we move this over here and move that? Yeah, we all have a wish list, but let's be realistic. They are being very kind. They're giving us a huge greenway that's being discussed. They've shrunk it down into a third of what they were asking. I just think that we need to be a little considerate when we're talking about these things. Yeah, granted, the traffic's an issue, but they also, at the same time, they have to meet those regulations. So it's not like they can just haphazardly put up 300 units and have all this traffic, and if it doesn't meet regulation, then they can't do it. There's regulations in place, and that's what they're there for. So I just think you need to be aware of what that property owners have sacrificed and compromised greatly.
I guess, is it really, if they just inherited it, if I inherited a bunch of land from my parents, and
I'd
that's
keep
like
it the way it
bonus.
was.
That's like icing on the cake.
Sure.
And so for somebody to say to go from 800 to 360, that's no compromise. That is, I had nothing before.
No, you could still have 800. You could still have all that money from 800.
Before you do,
So we can argue this ad nauseum.
let me introduce the representative for the property owner. Because the next thing you'll be curious is, okay, now we got big potential open space. But what kind of development will be possible for that 14 acres? So that will be logical next question. And of course, as a property owner, what can we build? That will be their home. So as I understand, Mr. Sean Henry, representative of the property owner, have been actively talking to some development company. So he may give us some history and potential future development picture. So for that, I will give the mic to Mr. Sean Henry.
Thank you, Council Lady. Dr. Charney, we've got some slides that we'd like to share with you just to highlight some of the effort that's been underway by my client, Nashville Highlands LLC, since July. They have had their engineers analyze the environmental conditions on the property, and what's proposed now in the form of the SP as a disturbance area does meet and is a reasonable plan of development pursuant to both fire marshal, stormwater regulations, etc. So Alliance Residential, you may recall, for those of you who were at the meeting, Alliance Residential is a big multifamily developer out of Phoenix, headquartered out of Phoenix. They're presently building in Nashville and Germantown, 8th Avenue South. They've got a number of other sites that they're looking at. They're very much interested in this site. They're normally not a suburban type developer, but they're very interested in entering this market. And they had under contract a portion of this property to develop about 400 units or so. And they have since stepped aside because the zoning for the property is not yet certain. And they couldn't wait around. So they did, however, Councilor Lady Johnson suggested that if they were intending to build some sort of product there, what might that look like? It might help you all see the kind of product, and it is a luxury product. This is from Charleston. Obviously, they're not going to be doing a Charleston style necessarily, but it gives you a sense of the kind of flavor that they presently build, and a lot of this is just self-explanatory. Interior space.
Does that look like affordable housing?
And this would be a typical unit. They build luxury products.
Are these apartments or condos?
They build apartments. So going back to where we were, on the July meeting at the Planning Commission, I know this is a little difficult to see, but and Mr. Swagger has already summarized what's been going on. I can't see my dot. Here we go. So this is the tract that would remain open space. What we had proposed in July was that we would take this disturbed area, this area of presently approved disturbance, which is roughly 40 acres, about 20% of the site. Presently, open space is 162 acres, about 80% of the site. What we had proposed to the Planning Commission is to reduce that down to about 30 acres of developable area, which is 15% of the site, and that would leave the difference there being 172 acres or 85%. Now that's just the two parcels here, that's 202 acres. And we prepared a summary today just to give you a sense of what the presently approved PUD allows, what we had proposed in July as a response to the effort to look and see if this is going to remain a viable PUD, and where we are today with the proposed SP. So presently 864 units. We have proposed 570. The Planning Commission staff is presently recommending 360. My client can live with that. The approved PUD, 80% open space, that was 162 acres. We felt like 85% at 172 acres would be viable. Where we are today is 93% open space, and that's 188 acres. And then you can read the bottom as to what's developable. So we've gone from a 20% area to a 15% area. Now we're down to a 7% area, which is that 14 acres that Mr. Swagger was describing. So we believe the SP represents what the present property owner is prepared to accept. It preserves everything behind the ravine, if you know where the ravine is. And actually, it might help, Dr. Charney, if we could bring up probably the aerial photograph. And so the ravine is here. And you can see how the property was graded out for this road to continue. And we know now, because of the environmental analysis, that in order to cross that ravine, this would require a single span bridge. It could be done under the stormwater regulations. You could get up at a 15% slope max to the top of the ridge, and you could develop another 270 or so units up there. But the Planning Commission staff has said we're recommending against that. And that area, that open space, is presently for sale. And people were talking about how do we get our hands on it for the public. You know, it's for sale. So
How much?
don't jump all at once.
Well, we would like to preserve it.
And so this area here is the development area.
What's the price?
We welcome all offers. Seriously, there's a broker who's marketing the property.
$14.
Presently. Marcus Millichap is the broker out of Tampa who's marketing the property, both for the development portion and the rear portion, which is now proposed for no development. So that's it. If there's any questions, I'm finished. Yes,
So
ma'am.
there is not a developer at the present time?
There is not. I've been told there's a letter of intent that's circulating, but I have not seen it from I believe, a different developer.
So it's not part of Eagle Ridge?
This development will be part of Eagles Ridge, yes,
But a different developer?
correct.
So would that be separate from the 14 acres?
This is the 14 acres,
Yeah,
correct?
the 14 acres is all that we're talking about.
But you said spanning the ravine was that?
Right, that's off the table. So no more, nothing being developed east of that ravine.
For right now.
For right now, it sounded like, what was the Tampa, it was for sale? Is that what, or which part are you saying was for sale?
The open space, there was comments, how does the public get their hands on the open space?
Okay, so I think I'm hearing confusion right here. So that's 14 acres, and now the open space is for sale, and it's for sale through some guy in Tampa. Kind of sounds like a development slant, otherwise you just.
No. It's a broker. My client has a broker representing them in the sale of the property. It's all for sale. The 5 acres out front on Old Hickory Boulevard, it's for sale. This development site at 14 acres, it's for sale. The back property that's going to be open space and undevelopable is for sale. So no confusion.
Maybe just to clarify, I think,
Yeah.
so if this SP is passed, that Mina's proposed, then someone could still sell and buy the rest of that land, but it would be impossible to develop. You could only use it as open space.
Because of a
Someone could own
conservation
it, but they could put
easement
a
or what?
trail, because of the plan that Mina has proposed. I think that's,
Because I think it would like totally, to develop it would like totally erode so much, I mean, there would be so much, I mean, it's just,
That's correct. In
Mina-
case you didn't hear that answer, that is the answer. I mean, presently, there's 864 units approved to be built back there. Those units will no longer be built back there because of the SP.
And so what holds it in open space? Is
So-
it conservation easement?
The zoning.
But zoning changes in 30 years. You
It
know,
does.
Zoning always changes. Zoning is not permanent.
right, so we would like, I mean,
So was it
So,
conservation?
I think you're a bit
River to
confused.
Radnor would love to be able to
So-
buy it.
Zoning, this zoning is specific zoning. So that will control only 14 acres will be allowed to develop and rest will be open space, some kind of open space. That's the new zoning. So if anybody wanna come and develop whatever a different idea, they have to come to me for next 4 years or 3.5 years and then have to propose. And then I will say no, because this is the plan, this is the community plan, this is the area, it said cannot develop. So when this bill is passed, only 14 acres is the area anybody can develop. So anything other than 14 acres, it has to be open space. And
It just seems like zoning is not permanent, and we all know that. And you're not permanent. None of us in this room are permanent. And so in 40 years, it could easily be rezoned unless because you can specify when you sell a property or you develop a property, I will develop this, but I will put this in a conservation overlay or conservation easement. That can be specified on a property. And so my question is has that been considered? And
yes, certainly.
Yes.
It's underway. Property owners are actively talking to those conservationist organizations to answer your question. Yes, ma'am.
As a homeowner in Eagle Ridge, I guess my main concern is that we are putting a property, butting on the property next to properties that have home ownership. We are putting property of transient units next to us. And that, for me, if they're gonna, if we're going to agree to
this SP will minimize the developed area. So for that point, I'm afraid the homeowner cannot say, no, push back to this way, because we don't like, this is too close to our home. So let's push back to this area. That's not what our planning is recommending, because that area will be more sensitive, the soil, and more hard to get to, and so forth. So various reasons planning come up with already developed to that area will be, if and when future development occurs, that will be the most appropriate area.
The area that's not the issue for me, it's what
What is going to build will be determined when proposal will come. And then it will go to the planning again, and they will really carefully review the plan. And so that time, yes, the public will have say as well.
I don't think it'll be affordable housing.
Pardon?
I don't
Any
think
other
it's gonna be
questions?
affordable housing.
Yes, ma'am?
This may be a legal thing. I don't understand. He said it would be part of the reserve, so if the reserve is condos and there's a homeowner association, how does that work with apartments and then the use of the rest of the property and the egress? I mean, there's one undeveloped road already that should be developed, and then there's one that is developed that everybody, makes sense. I don't understand how that mixes together.
So when this was approved in '85, the whole HUD boundary was approved as one plan. So when the part that's developed came in, they had to make plans to provide access to the back because it was a cohesive plan. So all those are in place, so they have legal access to the back of that property, which would have happened when they came in with their development plans to build what they have today. Does that make sense?
Except, are those that part of the reserve as far as?
Yes.
He referred
It-
to
it's
it
part
as
of the-
part of Eagle Ridge.
It's part of the overall development. What they call it, you have
It's gonna be
developments all the
part of the
time that they put them in little pods, they call them something else, that's not anything we look at, what it's called.
But I'm just talking about a certain area that's like the common area of the homeowners. Is that separate from the new development?
Like our HOA wouldn't have anything to do with the people that lived in those
No.
units. We are separate as a group, as homeowners,
Correct.
where we currently are. We would not have affiliation with the new development. Yeah, I got that. Good question. Is that correct? That we are separate, as we are now, Eagle Ridge at the reserve, as a group of homeowners, are separate from whatever new development would be.
Yes, but you're gonna share the
Whatever
same
you guys do
road
with
probably.
Where is
Right,
that
we'll
other
share the
road?
same
You said
road,
there'd be two
but-
roads.
But we don't, they're not involved in our HOA decision.
There's two drives that currently go to Old Hickory, one to the north and one to the south.
But that is part of Eagle Ridge homeowners.
Y'all maintain it.
Right, that the homeowners maintain. We don't maintain that back because don't own that.
Yeah, I understand there are easements in place that provide them the ability to go through that property and access Old Hickory.
So they don't pay.
Yeah, they will share in the expenses. They will share in the expenses.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I think I understand what's being said is that most of the people in this room do not really would rather there be no development at all. That they become property owners who own
Okay, so that's like 10 green. Like our property, we had someone, 10 green bought part of our property so it wouldn't be developed a couple of years ago. Correct, Willie?
Any further questions?
I mean, the problem is who is gonna buy land that can't be developed? There's just
Well,
not-
it'd be great for just,
If you know anybody independently wealthy and donate money,
$14.
if you don't have, any further question, or if you have any further question, please feel free to get in touch with me. I can be reached at mina.johnson@nashville.gov, which is mina.johnson, JOHNSON, @nashville.gov. And anytime, and if you have questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. And this SP, we will have Planning Commission public hearing in January 14th. And so before that, if you wish to have another community meeting, I'll be happy to participate, or you can just email me or call me anytime. And then again, this bill will go to council public hearing in February 5th, I believe. But I will keep you posted on the email, Facebook, and Nextdoor, and so forth. And I really appreciate everybody coming in here. Thank you.